Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, the debate over gun reform front and center as the nation heals from multiple mass shootings, how survivors of gun violence are rallying to raise awareness, and the latest on proposed restrictions. An Illinois commission taking on hate crimes, why so many go unreported, and what's being done to change that.
I started Rock Innovation for my kids, actually.
And a Chicago entrepreneur with a passion for problem solving. She shares her journey and what landed her on Shark Tank. First off tonight, just as President Biden was wrapping up his address to the nation on gun violence this week, the 911 calls began coming in Ames, Iowa, where a gunman killed 2 people at a church before turning the gun on himself. This shooting follows a series of them in recent weeks, most notably a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, and a medical center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Meanwhile, here in Chicago, Memorial Day weekend was one of the most violent in recent years, with at least 47 people shot, including 9 fatally. As gun-related violence spikes nationwide, gun control activists are wearing orange this weekend to honor survivors of violence and raise awareness. Wear Orange Weekend was inspired by Hadia Pendleton. The 15-year-old was shot and killed in a Southside park in 2013. 11 years later, her mother, Cleopatra Cowley, reflects on her daughter's life and impact.
Wear Orange Weekend is about highlighting issues of gun violence across the country. There are, it initially started after the death of my daughter at 15, Hadia Pendleton. She was murdered in Chicago. And so her friends got together and, being as young as they were, selected orange as a bright color, which is a symbol to hunters not to shoot. So it's their way of saying, don't shoot, don't shoot us. Our perspective has been to celebrate life because I appreciate the 15 years I had with her more than I hate the time without her. So I want to focus on that. The things that I appreciate about her so much are what give me joy around this time. Yeah, can I cry? Absolutely. But the ability to smile and for my stomach to do this amazing little thing it does, at the thought of like how excited I was when I became mom. She was my firstborn. So what that was like, what those, remembering like the anticipation of her coming and, I wouldn't change any of that for the world. And I think that if we focus more in that space, we can combat this trauma and grief that we're dealing with so readily, so heavily.
Many survivors of gun-related violence and supporters of the Wear Orange campaign believe part of the solution to saving lives is stricter gun laws, but many gun rights advocates are opposed. Joining us to discuss recent gun reform efforts are Valerie Burgess, the co-chapter lead for Moms Demand Action in Illinois, and Rhonda Ezell of Chicago Guns Matter. Thanks to you both for joining us. Valerie Burgess, let's start with you, please. Moms Demand Action, you all have been at the forefront of advocating for stricter gun laws. How do recent shootings influence or affect the work that you do on this?
Well, the recent shootings have really galvanized our movement. In the past 2.5 weeks, we have had hundreds of thousands of individuals across the country who signed up with Moms Demand Action to volunteer to see what they can do, how they can contribute to reducing the senseless gun violence that occurs, not just in this city, but across the country.
Rhonda Ezell, Chicago Guns Matter. You all describe the organization as being made up of pro-gun advocates. For you, what does it mean to be pro-gun?
That means being able to freely protect ourselves, exercise our constitutional right. We have a right to self-defense, and we know that we're responsible for our own safety. And when we say we're pro-gun, and we want to make sure that we can educate the general public on firearm safety. You know, we want to educate them on who we are, the cases that we fought and won, and how to go about exercising their rights. A lot of people don't know how to do that. And so we're just here to give them that information.
Valerie, a gun reform package that Democrats are calling Protecting Our Kids Act. It's making its way through the House. The bill would raise the legal age to buy certain semi-automatic rifles from 18 to 21, ban new high-capacity magazines, existing ones would be grandfathered in, crack down on gun trafficking, and require safe storage of firearms, among other measures. Valerie, do you think this is the right step to take, and are there other gun control measures that you would like to see?
Well, I'm not sure if it's the right step to right all of the wrongs in terms of the gun violence that we see in our communities, but it's most certainly a good first step. There's so many factors that go into gun violence, especially in our communities, not just the mass shootings at a school or a supermarket, but the everyday gun violence that we experience in our communities. So I think it's a good first step. I'm sure there are probably other measures that could come later, but for the moment, it's a good first step.
So, Rhonda, calls are growing for a nationwide ban on AR-15 style rifles, the weapon used in the Uvalde school shooting and Wednesday shooting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, the U.S. did have a federal assault weapons ban from 1994 to 2004, which included semi-automatic rifles, and there is data showing that this ban was effective in preventing mass shootings, including a study from Northwestern Medicine, which found that it likely prevented as many as 11 mass shootings. If a ban could reduce the number of mass shootings in this country, why not have one?
Banning firearms isn't going to stop an individual from choosing to commit violence. These people are mentally ill. They are planning these attacks in advance, and they're making the decision to go out and commit heinous crimes. I don't think that the blame should be placed on a firearm. Using the term gun violence, and I put that in quotations, is actually placing the blame upon the tool instead of holding the individual responsible for their actions. I mean, in 1990, we had the Safe School Zone Act that was enacted, and yet it did not prevent any school shootings. As we could see, how many have we had since then? Over 32 years ago.
Rhonda,
so banning AR-15s is not the answer.
What would you say is your reaction to some of the other measures that House Democrats are working on that I just named with regards to banning high-capacity magazines, requiring safe storage of firearms? Do you think any of those measures are a step in the right direction?
Absolutely not. Considering the fact that the press secretary to the president says that he doesn't even believe in hardening the schools. So if you're not going to start with protecting the children and keeping them safe in those buildings, how do you think putting more legislation on the books would prevent another school attack? Criminals break laws every day. We see it each and every day. These are feel-good measures, just to say that they've done something to make people feel safe. We don't want to feel safe. We want to be safe. So I disagree with the notion of more legislation. Those laws that they're trying to put forth are actually unconstitutional, and they know this. So they're just throwing things out there to see what sticks.
So, as we mentioned earlier, the president did address this on Thursday evening, touching on this and banning AR-15 style rifles. Here he is.
We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21.
So, Valerie, what's your reaction to the amount of time it has taken for lawmakers to sort of coalesce on this and to pass any sort of gun reform legislation?
Well, my reaction is to look around and to see what's happening during the time that they have failed to take any kind of action. You know, I just want to say that as a representative of Illinois, Moms Demand Action, and on behalf of every town for gun safety, we're not anti-gun, we're anti-gun violence. And it's not gun control, it's gun violence prevention. That is our target. That is our goal, to stop senseless shootings. Yes, you may not be able to stop an individual from committing a mass shooting, but we shouldn't make it easy for them to do so either.
Are you hopeful, Valerie, that lawmakers will be able to come to some sort of a compromise this time around?
I'm hopeful. I'm not very optimistic about it. We had Sandy Hook about 9 years ago, and nothing came after Sandy Hook, and those were babies as well, just like the babies that were shot and killed in Uvalde. So I'm hopeful. I hope we can move in that direction.
What would you say Moms Demanding Action is doing to get the ear of lawmakers?
We are contacting senators across the country, asking them to take action, asking them to stop looking away, asking them to start doing something. They say that they're representing their constituents when it has been shown that approximately 90% of the American public who has been surveyed want them to take action. They want them to have background checks. They want them to do red flag laws. They want them to enact safe gun storage. We advocate for all of that. We're not against any of those things. We're just trying to keep our children safe.
And Rhonda, before we run out of time, if not ramping up gun control laws, what do you think could be done to decrease violence?
First, we have to take a look at what's happening in America. These people are mentally ill. It starts at home. They need help, and it needs to be seen in an early stage. Number two, stop playing politics, utilizing the Second Amendment as a political pawn. If you want to make change, sit down and come to real solutions, and not just things that you want to help your side of whatever you support. Because at the end of the day, we know that putting laws on the books isn't going to prevent the next shooting, the next mass shooting, or any other type of shooting. We have to hold criminals accountable for their actions.
Okay, and that's where we'll have to leave it. My thanks to both of you, Valerie Burgess and Rhonda Ezell, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, a revived commission is looking at hate crimes across the state. We speak with two of its members right after this. As hate crime incidents rise nationwide, Illinois has revived a commission focused on addressing them here at home. According to the FBI's latest annual report, there were more than 8,200 hate crime incidents in the U.S. in 2020. That's up from 7,300 in 2019, when the country experienced the highest number of hate crimes since 2008. Now the Illinois Commission on Discrimination and Hate Crimes is set to examine how to prevent and address hate crimes across the state. Joining us now with more are Jim Bennett, chair of the Illinois Commission on Discrimination and Hate Crimes. He also serves as the director of the Illinois Department of Human Rights. And Hazel Crest Police Chief Mitchell Davis, who's the immediate past president of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, as well as a member of the Discrimination and Hate Crimes Commission. Thanks to you both for joining us. Jim Bennett, let's start with you. Please explain what the commission's purpose and goals are.
The commission's purpose is really as a convener to pull all the players together that can address hate crimes. And our purpose is really it has a multi-purpose. One is to make sure we're getting an accurate counting, make sure people know about us and also know how to report a hate crime when it happens, and then ultimately to stop hate before it happens and to try to keep these incidents down as much as we can.
Jim, what exactly is a hate crime? How is that defined?
Well, a hate crime is not anger or dislike. It's a specific group of crimes, like for example, an assault against someone based on a bias or prejudice. And usually that is surrounding a protected class that's outlined in the statute.
So one of the commission's goals for 2021 was researching existing law enforcement training standards and programs to recognize a hate crime and pursue it as such. Chief Davis, what role does law enforcement play in identifying and reporting hate crimes?
Well, I think you just said the most fundamental thing is being able to identify and make sure that when something does happen, that it is identified as a hate crime, and letting people know that it's an enhancement. So it is our responsibility to educate the public when things do happen that actually fall into that category.
Jim, as your report notes, your annual report that you all released a couple of months ago, the U.S. Department of Justice estimates the true number of hate crimes is actually more than what is counted by the FBI. What are some of the reasons that hate crimes go unreported?
I think there's a variety of reasons. I think people don't report them or don't know they should report them. They may feel like it's something, certainly with some groups of people, that they feel like it's something they should just have to accept, which is not the case. I think there's training is certainly a piece of it. You know, we need to let our law enforcement officers know what to look for, to ask the questions of why crimes took place. And that's a bit of a harder question in determining a motive of someone. And then there may be, it could be bureaucracy, that if something's happening, a crime has taken place and the police are responding, they may feel that the time consumption of trying to get the report out to go through the extra steps of getting this reported is cumbersome. And so there's a variety of things that we're looking at. And also I'd say, even for cities and municipalities, they don't want to say we have all of these hate crimes happening. And so we have to make it possible and find multiple ways of people being able to report these hate crimes and streamline the process so we're getting an accurate count, not only of what's happening, but who it's happening to.
Chief Davis, you know, from your perspective as a law enforcement officer, are hate crimes sometimes missed? And if so, why?
Absolutely. I believe hate crimes are missed. And I think the most fundamental reason is on our part in our profession is people not having knowledge on what defines a hate crime. And, you know, as Jim just said, you know, sometimes it requires additional investigation and additional effort. So, you know, leadership within organizations have to make sure that first and foremost, their members are trained to make sure that they can identify hate crimes and then realize the importance of proceeding with hate crime investigations and not just letting them go forward as a normal battery or something, or criminal damage to property, that we actually place the label as it is appropriately supposed to be placed on specific crimes.
Chairman Bennett, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul recently filed the state's first civil hate crime lawsuit against a mother and son pair for harassing a black neighbor by hanging a painted black dummy resembling the plaintiff from a noose on a tree facing his house. Do you think we'll see more prosecutions like this?
I commend the Attorney General's office for taking this case on. The law went in place in 2018. This is the first case that that the Attorney General's office has taken up. They're represented on this commission. Amy Meek, who heads the Civil Rights Division, serves on our Hate Crimes Commission. And I do think it's a path. Again, it's a civil path, so we also want to pursue these cases in the criminal side as well. But I do expect it to increase, and the AG's office is sitting on this commission and informing our recommendations. So I was thankful to see that. It was an extraordinarily ugly incident, and to respond to it from the AG's office is fantastic. So I commend them.
And remind us, you know, sort of like the purpose of a civil lawsuit that can be brought like that, and kind of what would happen in the event that the defendant, is found to be at fault.
Personal damages can be recovered, and so the person can be held financially and personally responsible for the crime that was committed.
Chief Davis, what more can police officers do to ensure that hate crimes get reported, that potential victims feel comfortable reporting to police?
So, first of all, we have to show that we care. We have to make sure that the community knows that we care. And what's happening with hate crimes right now is what's happened quite often in communities that have developed a culture of accepting things that shouldn't be the way that they are. And I'll speak specifically for communities of color. Quite often, communities of color are over-policed. And the members of those communities are quite often just that becomes a way of life. You know, it's a way of life that I'm going to get stopped, I'm going to get pulled out the car, they're going to put a dog in my car. You know, it's what happens in our community. And so that also is now being related to hate crimes, and that, as Jim said earlier, people accept it. Hey, that's the way it is. You know, nothing's going to happen if I tell somebody. And so from a law enforcement perspective, first and foremost, as I mentioned, we have to show that we actually care and that we can empathize with those that are being victimized from hate crimes. And we need to make sure that, once again, as Jim said before, that a process is in place that they are aware of that is going to allow them to be able to report these hate crimes and not feel victimized again in doing so.
And certainly the commission has its work cut out for it. That's where we'll have to leave it. My thanks to Chairman Jim Bennett and Police Chief Mitchell Davis for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, a Chicago entrepreneur takes her unique product line to Shark Tank. A Chicago entrepreneur with a passion for creation is growing her business one invention at a time. Raquel Graham, the founder of Rock Innovation, started her company in 2014 and since then has been developing products designed to, as she puts it, make life a little easier. And after becoming one of a few black-owned Chicago companies to appear on Shark Tank earlier this year, business has been booming.
I started Rock Innovation for my kids, actually.
For Raquel Graham, becoming an entrepreneur started out with a problem most moms can relate to: getting her kids to dress warm for the winter.
During the polar vortex, when they were younger, maybe about 6 years ago, they would not wear scarves. They decided that they were bulky and itchy, and if you remember the polar vortex, it was so cold that you had to have every bit of your skin covered. So I went online to see if I could find an alternative, and there was nothing.
With that, Rock Innovation was born with her first product, Necks. Then came Graham's second product, Headlights Beanies, inspired by a love for running at night. What started out as a fix to a problem is now a booming business operating out of this Westtown warehouse.
All of my products come from my life. I don't just think of products out of the blue. It's usually I'm doing something in my everyday and there's a frustration, and then I look to see if there's a product out there, and if there's no product, then I make it.
It's that innovation that put Graham's company on the map, appearing on Good Morning America, Oprah's Favorite Things, and most recently, Shark Tank.
Hi, Sharks. My name is Raquel Graham, and I'm coming to you from Chicago, Illinois. When you're in the tank, it's all a blur. Honestly, as you can tell, there's like so many questions happening at the same time. But yes, they were all really receptive, and it felt great.
Graham walked out of the tank with a deal from 2 sharks. She can't share the specifics of that partnership, but she can say her appearance on Shark Tank has been a game changer.
The exposure of Shark Tank. I mean, you can't beat it.
Along with exposure, the Shark Tank deal gives Graham the funding black and brown entrepreneurs often struggle to land. A 2021 analysis of Federal Reserve data by NerdWallet found 80% of white business owners receive at least a percentage of the funding they request from a bank, compared to 66% of BIPOC business owners.
For entrepreneurs in general, it's really hard to get funding. To be a black female entrepreneur, it is close to impossible. So in order for me to grow my business, I bootstrapped. I got funding from friends and family. And now at this stage, I'm able to get funding from banks, and there are a lot of investors that are interested. But the problem is when you're an entrepreneur starting out, you need the money at a lower level, in the beginning.
Graham says she expects to launch at least 3 new products this year, including a year-round version of headlights that can be worn in both cold and warm weather.
We are growing tremendously. And now I'm really excited to be able to get back in the lab because I have so many products that I want to launch. And so I'm in product development now. So it looks like we're going to be expanding, scaling with more products.
One thing Graham can guarantee is all her products will maintain her mission to make life a little easier.
When you look at my products, it's got to be some kind of like biography attached to it because there's something that would have happened in my life that made me create this.
And Graham says you can expect that first round of new products sometime in July. And that's our show for this weekend. If you're watching us on Saturday night, know that you can also catch Black Voices and Latino Voices on Sundays beginning at 10 p.m. And join me and Paris Schutz next week at 7 on Chicago Tonight. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for sharing part of your weekend with us, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a proud sponsor of diversity, equity, and inclusion-focused free continuing legal education for lawyers throughout the region.